Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Have you been thinking about getting into hardware? Well, here are some things that you need to know before you go down that rabbit hole. If you have been mixing in the box for a long time and you're looking to expand that into a hybrid setup, it's very important to go out and buy with a purpose. If you work on a lot of mixes daily, recalls can become cumbersome and they can really slow down your workflow. So what I mean whenever I say buy for a purpose, some things to consider is stereo gear versus mono gear, what you're going to be using in a tracking instance and what you're going to be using in a mixing instance. For example, my Audioscape G-Comp and my Silver Bullet, every single mix I work on is getting printed through those two things. So what I mean by that is that my settings rarely ever change on those pieces of gear. Of course, I'm going to adjust the threshold and the attack and release times and maybe the makeup gain, but all in all, I know where I want the needle to be pinned at on my compressor across the board. On the other end of that, if you're looking at the V-Comp, that is a mono piece of gear. So if you're trying to put that on a stereo vocal bus to compress all your vocals at once, you can't do that. You have to run all the vocals through it. You have to print it. It can be time consuming. So that piece of gear for me personally is going to be used more for if I have a singer or a vocalist in here and I'm tracking them through that and we're going ahead and we're committing on the way in. So definitely buy with a purpose and keep those things in mind. Another thing that you need to keep in mind if you're getting into hardware is becoming super organized with either recall sheets, recall documents, or using session recall. Session recall is digital recall sheets and it comes in handy a whole lot. You can see their list of brands down here on their website. They're constantly updating and adding to it, and chances are one of the pieces of gear that you're going to buy is going to be on session recall. I can't recommend this enough for ease of use and for workflow purposes. So you've picked out the piece of gear that you want. You've decided that you're ready to make that commitment into recalls. It's not really going to bother you so much. So what are some other things you have to consider at this point? Well, there will be growing pains. Whenever you first get your hardware integrated into your studio, you will quickly learn that you're going to have to go through some specific gain staging to hit the hardware the way that you're used to maybe on plugins. Hardware reacts a lot differently than software, so you're going to have to figure that out. Also, if you're using any mono pieces of gear, you decide you want to get an 1176, a V-Comp, or anything like that to track vocals through, you'll quickly realize that routing is key. You might accidentally put a mono piece of gear on a stereo end track without you realizing it, and banging your head against your desk for a couple of hours, wondering why the dry signal's coming out of the right, but the compressed signal's coming out of the left channel, only to realize you should have just set it up as a mono track to begin with. But you don't have to really think about those things if you're just mixing with just software. Also, take it from me, once you buy one piece of hardware, you're going to want to get more. And with more comes more cables. So make sure that your cable management is on point and make sure that you are going to have enough space to accommodate all the future pieces of gear that you're going to get. These points aren't meant to deter anyone from getting into hardware or into a hybrid mixing setup. More so, this video was intended to answer questions that we as a software company get all of the time in our emails. Is hardware better than software? Is software better than hardware? And really, there is no right answer to that. So keep in mind, this is all going to be subjective to your workflow and what you like to hear and what you envision your studio to be. So what about you guys? If you were a studio owner that went from mixing solely in the box to a hybrid setup, let us know what your experiences were like in the comments below. And if you liked this kind of content, you can check out our other video over here where we compare the V-Comp hardware to the software version. We'll see you guys next week. Happy mixing.